What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for another week of the NFL Weekly, week 9 to be exact, as we hit the official halfway point of the new 18-week season. With me, as always, my partners in crime. We'll start with Raider Jim Martinez. Mr. Martinez, you can find Mr. Martinez, I should say, at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, doing real well. And let me start off by saying this. As I have said more than one time, I said it on 1090. I've said it on the podcast at least half a dozen times. Coach A.J. Vasquez, back in high school, taught me one great lesson, or to the team he taught it, but it really sat with me. When you get your ass kicked, you just say, I got my ass kicked, and don't make any excuses. So my fist is up to my brother, Coach Lupian, and you know what? Great game last week. They just dismantled the Raiders, and what else can I say about that?
Yeah,
you don't have to say anything, really. I was going to take the high road and not mention anything because it's all love here. But since you brought it up, I'm just going to say fist pump right back at you. And yeah, it was a great game for us more than you guys. Let's just look at it like that.
There you go.
That was a tough one. And of course, you just heard from Coach Lupian. You can find Coach at Portland 76er on Twitter. This podcast actually tied the Raiders for the points scored on Sunday. Sorry, that was rude, but I had to get one in, had to get one in.
We're not going to be nowhere.
We're not going to be talking about the Eagles, so I have to get mine in somewhere, and you know how that goes. It's the host tax, if you will. So, but yeah, it was a tough weekend for Raider Jim's Raiders, but obviously it was a good weekend for a number of teams, and not only the week 8 looking back on, but for me in my lifetime, the most hectic and the most possibly influential trade deadline. There were a lot of big names being traded back and forth, some teams that I was surprised to be seeing getting into the mix. But that's where we'll start with our week 8 takeaways along with the trade deadline. We'll start with you, Raider Jim. What were your thoughts? Obviously, not a whole lot to say about those Raiders, but any other thoughts around week 8 and the trades that went down throughout the league?
The cream separates and rises to the top, and I guess that would be Buffalo and Kansas City and the Philadelphia Eagles, hands down. There's no other way to look at it. And let's throw the Vikings into the mix. Yeah. The Vikings are playing very, very well. Matter of fact, I read something just this week where they said, it used to be, well, Minnesota did another Minnesota, and it meant something derogatory. Now it's like Minnesota did another Minnesota, and it means that they found a way to win, or they just completely took control of the game. So, it's been interesting to watch. And as I think I said last week or the week before, I think it's all but confirmed now. There is a little bit of pulse left on the Packers, a little bit of pulse left on Tampa Bay, but boy, those two guys, they better get their tailors ready to go and make them some suits for the announcer's booth, because I think their best days are behind them.
Yeah, I believe the pastor has been called into the room. Last rites are about to be administered here in the next few weeks. But if any quarterbacks can kind of snap out of it and start doing jumping jacks in front of the priest, it would be either Brady or Rodgers. But I don't think we'll be betting too heavily on that until we see something different. Coach, what are your thoughts? Week 8 and the trade deadline thoughts?
Yeah, I'm glad our colleague there, Raider Jim, mentioned the Vikings, and they seem like the Vikings of new, and to tie them into the trade discussion, what a pickup! Picking up that tight end from Hawkinson from Detroit, let alone the name and the player and the value that he brings, but an interdivision like transaction. Yeah. What happens?
Crazy.
Is that even fathomable nowadays? But then you look at all the other deals. Like I think Miami's was A+. They want to get after a guy like Josh Allen, and they bring in Chubb. Like, are you kidding me? And then along with that defense, he just strengthens that core. And and now they're able to I spy a quarterback with that unit. And if Tua could stay healthy and move forward, and that offense starts to gel, that's a pretty dangerous team. But yeah, like looking forward to, I guess, after trade deadline performances. Looking forward now.
Yep. Back to the
I,
field.
back to the field, and I know you're disappointed that we won't let go of Alvin Kamara. I mean, you've been begging for him for 2 weeks, but like, who other than you? I don't think anyone else was asking for him.
No. And
No.
apparently the Saints wanted that pick back, which is at 9th, by the way. I checked last night.
And dropping.
It came
And
ready. Yeah,
dropping.
and well, I don't know. We'll see if that can be taken care of here. Go Ravens. Anyways, yeah, it's at the moment the Eagles will be drafting 9th, and that's what the Saints wanted. And while Alvin Kamara would be a bit of a game changer, and I mean would take the Eagles to the next level, I think it may be a top 10 pick, or at least what it's projected to be. That might be a bit much for and I'm going to put this in air quotes for our listeners. I'll say aging running back. As it's hard for me to say anyone's aging when they're younger than me. But the lifespan on running backs isn't a huge amount, and I think for Kamara, a lot of tread on the tires. But I think you both hit the nail on the head with Miami. That pickup of not only picking up Bradley Chubb, but I think I saw it either this morning or late last night. He's signed up 5 years. I don't know the exact numbers on it, but he is not going anywhere. This is not a rental. This is not anything other than them going out and I think starting to shift their focus this offseason. Obviously it was offense, bring in Tyreek. Let's bring some weapons for Tua. Well, guess what? We had some fun winning 38-35 or games like this, but if you want to take it to the next level, like you said, Coach, Josh Allen is your number one target, and how you stop him. I think second place in that division is, I don't want to say theirs, but they made a huge step in solidifying that. And also I'm a little confused with Chicago. They're really big on Chase Claypool. They saw him play at Notre Dame. It's right down the road, but a second round pick. I just think that's a lot for a team that has a lot of holes. For the Eagles, you could sit there and say if they give up Kamara, they don't have a whole lot of holes that they need to draft early on, but the Bears are not that team. And it was just an interesting pickup there. As I said, that kind of look at it like the major league trade deadline. You have your buyers and your sellers. I just was kind of surprised to see the Bears quote unquote buying at the deadline, but who knows? We'll see. The downfall of Aaron Rodgers has turned that division maybe upside down, and Chicago goes, hey, you know what? Maybe we could finish in second place. So Chase Claypool is the guy, then good for them. But it's time to dive into week 9, start looking ahead. As Coach said, it's time to put these pieces on the field and see how they perform. We will start with the struggling Las Vegas Raiders. They will head to Jacksonville. I did include the money lines this week. Vegas is minus 125. Jacksonville is plus 110 in Jacksonville. The spread looks like the Raiders minus 1.5 on the road, and the over-under is at 47. We can't go anywhere else other than starting with our man, Raider Jim. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are just like this. What do you say about the disappointment of the Raiders? This has been the most underperforming team I've seen out of the Raider organization in years, and that's saying something, because it's not like they've been top notch, top rung, or even the top 3 rungs for sure in the AFC West. Jacksonville, though, they are their own worst enemy. Trevor Lawrence is just, everybody keeps waiting. They're waiting for the breakout year, the breakout game, the breakout this, that, and it's just not happening. So what's going to happen in Jacksonville? The Raiders are going to do their thing where they have games where they almost win, get blown out, or never in the game, and then they play a great game. So this is their week to play that great game, and then they'll go back to their old ways, the following week. So I think you're going to see a good balance. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a great game. I think they will get after Trevor Lawrence on the defensive side. You're going to see 47.5 points. Yeah, I think they'll probably have some points on the board. So I'd go over 47 on this one. I'd take money line on the Raiders.
Yeah. My thoughts on this, obviously Jacksonville, I don't know if they started either, 2-1 or 2-2. And they were kind of that, hey, look what Jacksonville's doing. And then they faced the Eagles, and they haven't won since. It's been a tough stretch for Jacksonville. And you hit the nail on the head. I think Trevor Lawrence, it's time for him to step forward, because NFL teams, especially when they are drafting in the top 5, which Jacksonville is probably going to do unless something changes, they're not going to be patient with a young quarterback. They, they signed him, they gave him his signing bonus, but they can move on real quick. Just ask Jimmy G. And believe me, Jimmy G has had a ton more success than Trevor Lawrence. So that just kind of shows you these teams aren't going to be terribly patient. I thought the Doug Peterson kind of mesh would work well. And it maybe did early, but it's lost its lust. And at the end of the day, I think film has caught up to them. I think they haven't made enough adjustments, and teams are, defensive coordinators are looking at it and going, hey, we can play a pretty vanilla defense and still beat these guys. On the Raiders side of things, at the beginning of the year, if you would have told me the one side of the ball that's struggling is the offense, I would have laughed at you, because you bring in an offensive minded head coach in Josh McDaniels. You obviously go out and get one of the best wide receivers in football, and you have a quarterback in Derek Carr that has shown that he can get you to the playoffs. The next step, that's out for the jury, but this is a guy that at the very least can win you 8, 9, 10 games. And it just hasn't really clicked, which is kind of crazy to me, but it seems like it's the Josh McDaniels situation. I don't know if he just isn't a great leader, this or that, but might be a Wade Phillips reverse, where he's a great coordinator, but just can't lead men kind of at the top of that. But looking at this game, I'm with you, Raider Jim. Personally, I won't be betting this game. You'll probably have to pay me a lot of money to watch it, but I do see the Raiders bouncing back. This is a perfect, they're going across country, but it's not in a hostile environment. I doubt we'll see any, major weather. Hurricane season is pretty much, done and gone. And I'm knocking on wood for all our people in the Gulf, because I have no idea. I don't want to, tempt the gods or anything, but I just think the Raiders is a winnable game for them. Wouldn't be surprised if Jacksonville somehow pulls it off, but I do think this number will go over 47, or I think we're going to see a, 31-24 fun game. It's going to be a fun game. I don't know if it'll be the cleanest game ever played, but I do think some points are going to be scored. So I'm with you. I like the Raiders money line as well, and take the over 47.5. Coach, what are your thoughts?
This is Lawrence's week, if I may. This is Lawrence's chance to really break out. And this would be against the Raiders, because their pass defense is just atrocious. They don't even pressure the quarterback. Max Crosby spends so much time running lateral instead of forward, because he's trying to find an opening. I mean, God love the guy. He's given it all he's got, but he's like the one-man gang out there, and you got to have more than one guy. And so with that, if they can keep the defensive line away from Lawrence, it'll be easy to find holes in the secondary.
Yeah, definitely. I think some of us could go out there and at the very least, tell you who's open. I don't know if we can make those throws, but we could tell you who's open. Coach, what are your thoughts? Vegas 1.5 point favorites as they head to Jacksonville.
Well, I'm not so disappointed in the Raiders' performance up till now. I'm just not a Josh McDaniels guy. I think that it's true as far as the Belichick tree just doesn't know how to produce NFL head coaches, and he's kind of stamping that opinion around the league. As much as I hyped up Jacksonville last week, I'm extremely disappointed, because they were at their first home in London, and they just found a way to lose, right? So I'm going to go Raiders money line here. Raider Jim, please make sure your boys don't disappoint the pick. So call whoever you have to call in the organization and start calling for heads. Maybe that's what's needed, starting with the head coach.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, but as you know, I completely agree with you, Raider Jim. It's kind of a fork in the road. I think if they win this game, you can take positives, and if you're a Raider fan, you can look at it half glass full. But my goodness, if they lose this game, I don't know how they come out of it. I don't know how the fans can pump themselves up for the next 10 games, here or there. I know Raider Jim will be giving us his thoughts, but it's going to be tough for this team if they do fall this week. So interesting to see how that one goes. That one will be in Jacksonville. Moving on to a little AFC West versus NFC South matchup. Another West Coast team going across country to the South. It'll be the Los Angeles Chargers, minus 165 at the Atlanta Falcons, plus 145, their money lines. The Chargers sit as 3-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 49. Raider Jim, get us started. Your thoughts, Chargers at Falcons.
Also known as the alumni game, because it's going to be Mariota and Herbert, quarterbacking these teams. And I'm sure we're going to see all the college pictures on the pregame show and during and at halftime and all the highlights. But congratulations to both of those guys to be out there. And it's got to make the game that much more enjoyable for these guys.
So does anyone know? Sorry, does anyone know if Dan Fouts is going to be announcing this game?
That's true.
Three ducks in a pond.
That'd
Three
be
ducks
phenomenal.
in a pond. Jeez, come on now.
Trying
to take our thunder. It writes itself. It writes itself. Sorry, go ahead.
No, not at all. Not at all. So here's the thing. The Chargers have not a good defense. They give up, 27, 28 points a game. Falcons have a bad pass defense, which means it should be that's where you get that Charger favorites on the road, except for one thing. Keenan Allen is probably not going to play, and his other target isn't going to play either. So that kind of takes the passing, that takes a lot off of the passing game. And if they can get at Herbert, which I think they will, and if the other thing is Atlanta's got a pretty decent running game. So here's what I say on this one. It's going to end up being Atlanta offensive line is going to control it. And then we're going to see, take the +3. If you want to get a half a point on that, take the Falcons +3.5. I don't know that it's going to go over 49 on this one. So I would go under 49 on this one. Atlanta +3.5.
Good call there. Coach, NFC South is your domain. So I'll give you second crack. Chargers at Falcons.
So I have one question, and I'm wondering if either one of you gentlemen could answer it. Is the health of Pitts? If he's playing, I love Raider Jim's pick. If he's not, I don't know. But they're trying to stake claim in the division, the Falcons, and they're sitting up top in first place in a very questionable division. So every game from here on out for them, they got to treat it like a playoff game. I do like their running attack has stabilized the offensive position. Mariota has been everything Raider Jim needs in Derek Carr for that team. However, they do have issues on the defensive line. Go with it. Go with Atlanta. What was it, 3.5? And I believe the Chargers to win. Yeah.
Yeah. So it does look like, hamstring injuries are always a little iffy. As of right now, he didn't practice Wednesday. That's hardly, a death sentence or a X him out and forget all about him. But at the same time, for a young player missing practice, things like that, not a great sign. For me, looking at this, I think you could have told Atlanta, look, you're going to be through 8 games. You're going to be 4-4, and they probably would have kissed you on the mouth. And then it would have got a little more risque when you told them, hey, you're also going to be in first place in the NFC South. Nobody would have thought that happened. That would happen in the NFC South that we expected to see this year. Obviously, them being 4-4, a full game up on everyone else. I think that's good for them. This is a team that's kind of a tale of two different teams. They're 3-1 at home, 1-3 on the road. It's that quintessential dome team. I think the Chargers going back east, they always kind of struggle with that. This is a 10 a.m. game. for, at least the West Coast people. And their body clocks will be thinking it's 10 a.m. Never been a big believer in that too much, especially when you're going to a climate controlled dome. I think the weather is more of an issue for California teams than anything. But I like Atlanta here. I just think the Chargers are too beat up. You obviously have the offensive line issues. They come into the season, think they have a really good offensive line, lose two of their top guys immediately almost. Obviously, the Keenan Allen, they should be used to it at this point. Like at this point, Keenan Allen's name needs to be spelt with a Q somewhere because he's always questionable. So you do wonder if he's going to either play, and if he does play, does it become a factor? Is he just kind of a decoy? Because there's not a whole lot of weapons there for the Chargers. I think Atlanta does enough to win this game, so I'm not going to go money line. I like Raider Jim's +3. Buy yourself a half point, get yourself +3.5, cover yourself for, a last second field goal, something like that. But in terms of the over under, I agree here. I think it's too high of a number. I think both of these offenses, Atlanta offenses, isn't elite as is, and the Chargers is struggling, to say the least. I think the Herbert injury has not gone away. It's still there, even with this bye week this past week. So I do like Atlanta. I will buy that half point +3.5 and stay under the 49. So moving on to, I think this is Sunday Night Football, but we have Tennessee at Kansas City. The Titans are +480. Kansas City -650. This game, of course, is in Arrowhead. Rather large spread, one of the biggest ones we'll talk about this week. It is Kansas City 12.5 point favorites. The over-under is only 46.5. Raider Jim, AFC West domain is yours. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they have identical records, which is kind of surprising that it's a 12.5 point spread on this one. I get it. I think Kansas City's the best team in the AFC right now, but not 12.5 points on this one. What they do have in their favor, or what's going to work for them on the defensive side of the ball, is Tannehill has got a bit of a dinged up ankle. He's still recovering from that. It's going to take away some of his mobility. If they can get a little pressure on him, that's going to make a difference on that side. But I'm telling you, you want to watch the game, put it under the microscope, watch the offensive and defensive lines. It's going to be the Titans defensive line against the Chiefs offensive line. That's where this one gets won or lost. And I have a feeling this isn't the Chiefs line that we've seen where they were plugging and playing people, over the last couple of seasons, trying to find the right fits because people were injured. And I think the Chiefs are going to have a fine game on this one. However, I don't think that they're going to win by 12.5. I'll take Tennessee +12.5 all day long. But I do think both teams are going to put up some points. So I would say, knock a half point off that, the over-under, and go over 46.
I like it. Coach, what are your thoughts? Kansas City host the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if Tannehill was even going to be in this game, but if you say he's playing, I know he's still nursing that injury. I could see where there's that double-digit spread, but, I think Vrabel has a good concept down how to attack the Chiefs. I mean, he's proven it over the years, whether it's regular season or the playoffs, for that matter. I do like Tennessee to cover it, especially with the balance they have in their defense and their running game.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think this is a very coverable game for Tennessee. Definitely not winnable. Call. Yeah, it's very coverable.
Yeah.
I guess the big question for myself, and I guess the intriguing part, is what tempo is this game played at? Because you have two offenses that are complete opposites in terms of how they want to, control and what they want to do with the ball. Kansas City wants 40 possessions and each possession 2 minutes. It's like the run and gun. Tennessee wants about 6 possessions, taking about 10 minutes off the clock each time. Obviously, something's got to give. We're not going to have both of these teams setting the tempo. But at the end of the day, I think Tennessee does enough to stay within 12.5 here. I know Tennessee's had some struggles, but I believe they've won at least 4 in a row, they're 5-2, looking a lot better than early in the season. Obviously the quarterback issue is a bit of a a question mark. But if Tennessee does what they want to do, the only question you should be having or asking your quarterback is are you handing out of your right hand or your left hand to Derrick Henry? They need to run the ball. They need to control the clock. I think the only way Kansas City covers this is if it gets bad. We go into the second quarter and it's 17-21 nothing. Because at that point, Tennessee's forced into throwing the football and abandoning the run, which that is not a recipe for wins or a cover here. But I do think Tennessee does enough under the bright lights of Kansas City on Sunday night. They cover the 12.5. Kansas City wins the game. And I like the over here. I think we are going to see some points. I was very surprised. 46.5 for a Chiefs game. I don't care who they're playing. You got to maybe go a little higher on that, but we'll take advantage of that hopefully and see how that Sunday night matchup goes. Should be an interesting one. Like I said, very intrigued to see what tempo those offenses are able to play at. So now we'll move into coach's wheelhouse. We got the Monday night football matchup. Baltimore Ravens at the New Orleans Saints. Baltimore is -140 money line. New Orleans +135. The spread sits Baltimore favored by 2.5 and the over under at 48.5. Coach, what are your thoughts on your streaking Saints?
I think the biggest news is the disappointment in Mike Thomas not being able to recover. Another complication in his recovery from that foot injury, out. However, on paper, this team has always been a top 5 defense. As much as no team gets shut out in this league except for last week.
Raiders.
Oh, yeah, except for last week. And I don't know if it was so much of the inability of the Raiders to score or the defense is living up to that hype. Now, they've always been able to play Baltimore really tough. I mean, the last couple of games, it was a Tucker miss for the Saints to secure the win. Then I can't remember our kicker's name right now, but it was Lutz kick for the W the last 2 times. So they play each other really tough. We'll see what the impact of Roquan Smith has on this team. Wow. Going back to the trade deadline, right? I mean, that's a whole nother story. Chicago trading for offense and giving away the defense. Yeah. But, we'll see what kind of performance he has as far as immediate impact goes. And then, Dennis Allen still hasn't named a starting quarterback for this week. So that'll probably come out later. I mean, he has an extra day since it is Monday night. So, if it's Dalton and he's able to secure the ball and be a possession kind of guy and not turn it over, we're going 3-1 against Bird mascots this season. And it easily could have been 3-0 had he not turned the ball over against the Cardinals. So, we're going against the Ravens, another Bird team. And I think there's some precedent to go 3-1 against Bird teams in the league this year. As far as the spread goes, hey, Lamar Jackson's quietly had a very good season. And, what can I say? He's a dynamic player. And -2.5, that's a real low number. I like the Saints to cover. And it's at home, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And that 3 points is enough. So here we go.
There we are. All right. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts as we see the Ravens and Saints tangle on Monday night?
Yeah, Jackson, as Coach just said, Lamar Jackson is just quietly having a phenomenal season. Phenomenal might be too strong of a word, but he's having a very, very good season. I would say he's got to be in the pack for, if he can put together a few good games, a few good victories, and keep racking up stats, he'd be talked about for MVP, consideration for MVP. But really, to me, in this game, what gives them the 2.5 point favorite on the road, Roquan Smith. Yikes. That is going to be the difference maker right there. I think that's going to really play well for them on the defensive side of the ball. unfortunately, Coach threw out one of those stats about bird teams, and I don't like buying into that stuff, but I was buying into it because my stat like that is Lamar Jackson is 13-1 in 14 career starts against NFC opponents. That's fancy shooting. Wow. That's not bad shooting at all. So we'll see, but I really think that in this one, it's going to be a great game, a physical game. We kind of have to do Olympic scoring with the Saints because you shut out the Raiders, big deal. I mean, you ran up a score on them, big deal. And I mean that from the Raiders standpoint of our offense couldn't produce and our defense is terrible. So I will take Baltimore -2.5 on this one. I don't know that it goes over 48. I'd probably buy that half point and go under 49.
Yeah, this is a interesting matchup. Two teams that look similar, but I feel like obviously different, very different. Baltimore knows, look, Lamar's our guy, blah, blah, blah. And Coach talked about it. We're 4 days away from that game and we don't know who's starting. But at the same time, the home field advantage in New Orleans is maybe not like it used to be, but it's still a big factor. If they can rattle Lamar early, keep an eye on that. And I thank you to both of you for the Roquan Smith. I think he was the first trade of the trade deadline and just kind of got buried. But that may be the biggest and most influential pickup because that's what we talk about with the Ravens. Their first 2 or 3 losses, they trailed a grand total of 13 seconds in game time or in, real game time. That's crazy. They were giving up leads late. They can score with anybody, but can they stop them? Which is kind of crazy to talk about with the Ravens and their history. But I do wonder, if the 4 days, 5 days is enough to get him fully versed. I don't think it is, but I think he's a smart enough guy that he can pick up on a lot of things. Probably going to see more of an impact next week when he's able to fully digest the playbook. This was an interesting spread to me. We always talk about the home field advantage default. You get 3 points. So with the 2.5 point spread, it's essentially a pick 'em in a neutral site. I'm going to take the Ravens money line. Just because I think at the end of the day, they do just enough late. Coach talked about it the last 2 games. It's come down to either a made or a missed kick. So when that spread sits at 2.5, I'll just take the money line if I'm doing anything on this. But in terms of the over under, I don't think we see as much scoring as we think. If we see that kind of competitive game, we could see maybe the Ravens blowing them out. But if that's the case, we don't get to that number. I'm going to take the under here. I think it's more a little closer to the vest. Something that, you're not going to see a ton of AFC versus NFC matchup. You're not going to open up the playbook for either of these teams too much. So I will take the under, but I will take Baltimore money line, and hopefully we can get the Eagles can get ourselves up into the top 5 this week of the draft projection. Sorry, Coach. Moving on to NFC East, or excuse me, an NFC West versus a NFC South matchup. We got the LA Rams plus 125 as they head to Tampa, who is minus 145. Tampa Bay on the spread is 3-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 42.5. We got an NFC South matchup, so we'll head to Coach first. What are your thoughts, Coach? Rams at Buccaneers. Buccaneers 3-point favorites.
Like, what is up with the Rams? I have no idea what's going on with them. They're probably living that Hollywood life. But then you're going to say, what the heck's up with the Buccaneers? And I heard on the radio this week, a lot of people still see the Buccaneers as a playoff team, more so than the Rams, which is surprising. But I think that has to do with which divisions they're in and some of the surprises and moves that some of those teams in the NFC West teams have made. No one expected Seattle to be what they are. And then you see San Francisco picking up a McCaffrey. It's like, okay, now I could see why they're picking Tampa Bay as a better playoff or as a projected playoff team over the Rams. That doesn't mean that that's the way this game's going to go. You just, who knows what you're going to get out of Brett, or not Brett. I said I was going to call him Brett Favre. Brady this week. I'm curious to hear Raider Jim's take, since his takes are a whole lot more solid than mine. So, Raider Jim, have at it.
What do you say about the two teams from the Super Bowl last year? What a difference a half of a season makes, not even a full year. What a difference a half a season makes. Wow, too complacent, too cocksure of themselves that they were going to come out and probably repeat. But they just don't have it. Here's what's going to happen in Tampa Bay. First of all, as I'm just now reading a couple things, quite honestly, none of this seems to be Brady's fault. He's throwing at 66% completion rate. He's got almost 2,300 yards, but their running game, 3 yards per carry. Well, that's not his fault, is it now? And their defense isn't that stout. But I think they're going to put this one together. Apparently, Brady only needs 160, 140 yards, something like that, to reach 100,000 yards over playoffs and regular season. And just for fun, I had to figure it out. That means he has thrown a football almost 57 miles. That is amazing. What's going to happen is this one, Tom Brady doesn't lose 4 in a row. They're going to put it together for Tom. I think that the divorce press is out, done. I mean, it's a done deal. She's talked about it. He's talked about it. They've been very upfront about it. And he says, they're both saying, hey, it was amicable. So let's play ball. And I think that's what you're going to get, the old Tom Brady. And I think that the Rams are going to just be a little bit deeper in the hole that they have dug for themselves. I will take Tampa Bay -3, though. I'm going to have to go that half-point thing that I like to do and go Tampa Bay -2.5 at home. And the over-under, I will go over 42 on this one because I have a feeling they're going to put up some points.
Yeah, I agree. These are two teams that met in either the wild card or the divisional round. I don't fully remember last year. And the Rams almost blew it. But it was the Buccaneers who blew it by, just absolutely neglecting to cover Cooper Kupp late in that game. For both of these teams, they can look back at January and almost longingly, right? Obviously, you still had the retirement saga that the Buccaneers had to go through. Bruce Arians no longer there. That could possibly be it. But I think for the Rams, I hate to say it, but this is kind of the MO for Sean McVay. He's going to have, that flash in the pan season. They go to the Super Bowl a few years back, and then they're kind of mediocre for the next 2 or 3 years. And then they go and win the Super Bowl. Well, guess what? We're in that kind of mellow phase right now for them, I feel like. And I agree with you, Coach. You talked about how, a lot of people are projecting the Buccaneers as still a playoff team. I think that's a big part of that is that division. I don't think anybody looks, even with the struggles of the Buccaneers, they're still probably the best team in that division. And Raider Jim brought it up as well. It's not on Tom Brady. He's doing what he needs to do. Now, maybe he's not carrying teams like he used to. I mean, some of those Patriot teams had absolutely no run game, and still he was able to make it work. But at the same time, you can't expect a 40-plus-year-old Tom Brady to continually carry your offense. I keep thinking back. It's almost the perfect microcosm of the season for the Buccaneers is that Mike Evans bomb. He's wide open and he just drops it. Of all the wide receivers in football, he's probably the one you'd want in that situation, and he just dropped it. I feel like that's where the Buccaneers are. But it's still very early for them. 3-5 is not a death sentence in that division. I mean, conversely, you look at the Commanders. They're going, oh man, we have no way to get it back into this. Buccaneers, 1 win this weekend, and they're right back in the thick of things. Probably would then become in first place, depending on how the tiebreakers work, depending on how the Chargers-Falcons game goes. I'm going to take, just like Raider Jim, by that half a point. Don't get beat on a field goal that gets you and it's a push. I like Tampa -2.5. And 42.5. This is another almost like the Vegas is in 2021 mode handicapping this game. I don't think these two defenses are as electrifying as they were last year. I think we see some points being scored. We go over that 42.5. So Moving on to another one of the more lopsided spreads we'll see this weekend. It's the Buffalo Bills minus 620 at the New York Jets, who are plus 460 on the money line side of things. The spread sits Buffalo minus 12.5, and the over-under is 46.5. Raider Jim, we'll start with you. A battle of a true New York team and another in name only. It's the Bills at the Jets. What are your thoughts?
I'll tell you, I was talking to a buddy at work after watching the Bills play this past week, and I was thinking back to Dante Culpepper, one of the biggest guys I've ever seen under center. And then I watched Josh Allen, and he took off with the ball. And it wasn't just that he took off with the ball. He's also smart, because as he was coming up on the defensive back or the linebacker that he was bigger than, he wrapped it up the way you're supposed to do it. He wrapped it up both arms, pulled it into his chest. Then he just basically flattened the guy out. You know, he just ran into him and knocked him over, and they knocked him out of bounds. But Buffalo is legit. And my concern, even though it's a 12.5-point spread, maybe by the whole point, go for 11.5, because I think New York, they came out of the gate quick, but it's like, you know, using the horse racing vernacular, out of the gate around the first turn, doing good down the back stretch. You're holding it. But man, that home turn is long. And that's when you see the horses that took off great out of the gate suddenly fall back into the pack, and they start running where they belong. And that's probably what's going to happen with the Jets this week. So I like Buffalo minus 11.5. And I'll take over 46 on this one, just because Buffalo's a scoring machine.
Yeah, if this past weekend you felt a little tremor, or you saw, you know, something that you thought was a shooting star, that was just the New York Jets coming back down to earth. They looked really good, and they still have looked good. Didn't look terrible against the Patriots, but I think we're getting to the point similar with Trevor Lawrence. Does the question have to be asked? Is Joe Flacco the better option at quarterback to make this team win? I say yes. I don't think he gets them to a Super Bowl level, but he protects the football. I do know
and they've moved him to third. Is that right?
I believe so. And now. I think that's I think a lot of that's to take the pressure off Zach Wilson. So that if, they look at their fans and go, well, if you don't want Zach Wilson, I don't even know who's number 2 at the moment, if I'm being honest, but it's not Joe Flacco. And I don't think Jets fans, I haven't heard any Jets fans screaming for that. But I mean, I think we're getting to that point now with this team. A few weeks ago, I said the Jets were already at like 75 to 80% of their wins this season. And it kind of looks like it's holding true. 12.5, a big number for a division matchup. But Buffalo is on another level. The Eagles are undefeated, but Buffalo is the best team in football. I am man enough and unbiased enough to say that. And as I said all the time, Josh Allen is a Super Bowl problem. I'll deal with that in February. If we get to all that point, that's fine. I'll deal with that problem when it comes, if it comes at all. But Buffalo is an absolute juggernaut. 12.5, it's too big of a spread. I'd almost maybe parlay Kansas City, Buffalo, and find another kind of slam dunk game just to get myself back to even money. But this is too big of a spread for me to touch. However, I do like the over 46.5. Even if it does come down to garbage time, I could see maybe the Jets sneaking, up to 17, 24 points. And if that's the case, if the Jets get to 24 points, the over is done and dusted. I can guarantee you that. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe a backdoor over cover. So moving on to, Coach. I apologize. Ooh, Brandon, wake up. Coach, what are your thoughts on this game? I apologize.
There's not much different than I have to say other than what you guys said, but I do like the over on that. And I don't have to say anything about Josh Allen anymore.
No.
No.
The original. No. And I'll tell you this right now, he might have still been suiting up at Wyoming when Coach was telling us about Josh Allen. So if anybody in your life is telling you they were the first one on the Josh Allen train, I say au contraire. Coach has ticket 0001. That
Absolutely.
is for sure. But anything else, Coach? That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay, gotcha. I did not mean to skip you. It's been a bit of
It's all
bit of a
right.
long day, and I got
It's all
long-winded.
right.
You know how that
You're
gets.
gonna overlook my Saints too, and it's all good.
I am not overlooking your Saints. I'm just looking right at them and wishing negative thoughts so that my team can
Yeah.
get a higher draft pick.
No, I know that too.
Exactly. Moving on to a NFC South versus NFC or AFC North matchup. You got the Carolina Panthers plus 290 on the money line at the Cincinnati Bengals minus 360. The spread sits at Cincinnati 7-point favorites. The over-under is 42.5. It's the NFC South. So we'll send it over to you, Coach. Not going to forget you this time. Carolina underdogs on the road in Cincinnati.
As it should be, because our good friend the Pope is a huge fan of Joe Burrow, and as am I. And I don't know what to get out of Carolina. I don't even know who started quarterback last week, but I know it
PJ
wasn't
Walker.
PJ Walker. Yeah, like who's this guy? You know, admiral performance, but geez, you got former All Saints defensive line guy on that team. You got All Pro safety on that team. I won't mention Sour Apple, but he's on that team. And then you got, Mr. LSU Bayou Joe, and the number is 7. Like it's I think it's more of a fandom for me to pick Cincinnati, but I just don't know what you're going to expect from Carolina. One week they look like they're just throwing it away, and then all of a sudden they get a pretty decent performance, and it's like, Jekyll and Hyde. So I do like Cincinnati 7, and a deep South, or not that deep, but a Southern team versus a Northern team. I think the North takes it this time.
Yeah, I agree. Cincinnati can look at the standings right now and go, you know what, we're 4-4, not where we wanted to be after a Super Bowl. But young quarterback, young team. I know I expected it, and on our preseason preview, I said I think Cincinnati's not going to be terribly good this year. But if they come out and they win this game, they're looking at 5-4, and who knows what we see Monday night. They may be tied for first place with Baltimore, but at the very least, they're going to kind of keep pace with them. We've seen Cleveland go 1-4 in their last 5. They've kind of fallen off the pace in the AFC North. Cincinnati, this is a very winnable game. I think they get the job done. The loss of Jamar Chase, I would say came out of nowhere. I didn't see it happen, or I think it came out on either Tuesday or Wednesday that he was going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. You don't normally see stuff like that. Normally it's, hey, he went down during the game Monday. This is what happened. This is what's going on. So there were definitely some questions there, but I think there are plenty of weapons for Joe Burrow to take advantage of. Obviously, Joe Mixon will probably step into a bigger role, at least running the ball, taking some carries away from, throwing the ball here and there. Give me Cincinnati, and I do think they can cover that 7. If I'm feeling, a little crazy, maybe I'll buy a half a point and get myself under 6.5 just in case on that side of things. The 42.5 is interesting to me. It's all relying on whether or not Carolina can score, and I think they can. It's going to be PJ Walker, obviously. That's an interesting one. Going into this season, there was a quarterback controversy, but PJ Walker was not a part of that. He is now a hold of the reins, and I think they played valiantly, and it's unfortunate. It's kind of like, the little kid, you just rub him upside the head and go, you know what, you're not very good, but you're trying your hardest. That's kind of how I feel like Carolina is right now. And I think Cincinnati, they look at this as, look, this is a game that we need to win and start building on if they want to make another run at another AFC title. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Cincinnati hosting Carolina.
Well, I'd like to buy into the Cincinnati hype, but after what Cleveland did to them, I don't know. I just don't know. Bengals have given up 30 sacks is what my notes say, which is surprising. And if I'm Burrow, I'm not real happy about that. But it's the other side of the ball. they're not going to be in the playoffs. We already know that. The Panthers aren't going to be in the playoffs. They're not going to come close to it. But can they turn around and start playing good competitive ball? Yeah. So how do you get there? You know, sometimes it's just you make your house look better by taking out the trash or getting rid of the clutter. So you fire your coach, Christian McCaffrey, shake your hand and tell you good luck with your next jersey. But man, your jersey is not here in Carolina, but Deonta Foreman's is. And I think he's going to be the difference this game. He's put up some good numbers. I think he's going to have another strong game. I will take Cincinnati will probably get the win, but I think Carolina covers the 7. And the over-under, I think it's going to go over 42. I'll knock off a half point on that and say over 42.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Two teams forking the roads for a lot of teams. You can't stay at 3-5, 4-4 all season. Eventually, as Raider Jim talked about early on, the cream will rise to the top. We'll see how this one goes. Moving on to a game that, 10 years ago would have been on, Sunday Night Football, would have led every single television show, this and that. Now it's not so much. It's the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. The Colts are plus 210 on the money line. The Patriots are minus 255. The Patriots are 5.5 point favorites in this one. The over-under is the lowest of the weekend at 39.5. Raider Jim will give you the honors to start on this one. Indianapolis underdogs as they head to New England.
Yeah, it is that thing. It's you just kind of alluded to that. A few years back, this would have been must-see TV. This isn't must-see TV. This is must-we-see-it TV. I would prefer not to. But Indianapolis has organizational issues. It's not just the guys on the field, it was the coaching, it's the front office, there just seemed to, when there's a disarray at the top, it's going to transfer down to the field. And everybody's going to see it. So with that said, it's kind of hard to go out there. It's kind of like if mom and dad are fighting and you're going on vacation. It's hard to have a good time, right? You just can't do it. New England covers in this one. New England's will get their feet under them. 5.5. I don't know if they'll win by 5.5. They'll probably win by a field goal, maybe 4. So take the Colts plus 5.5. But I definitely say under the 39.5 as well. I don't think it's going to be the offensive shootout like you would have seen with some guy named Manning and some guy named Brady.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
I think 20-17 is probably your cap if you're looking at points, 37, and that's the field goal right there. And, would give Indy their that cover that they need. My question, however, it's still Sam Ehlinger. I mean, Matt Ryan they've told him, thank you. We'll see at the end of the season when we give you your walking papers. They're not doing any of this. Oh, well, we'll see how it goes. We're going to let Ehlinger in for X number of games. They're just, thank you. They're cutting their losses. They're moving on. They'll be trading for some other, washed up veteran quarterback next year, try it all over again. But Sam Ehlinger, maybe a good quarterback at this level. I don't know. And we probably won't know for a little while, but I don't think it's going to happen against Bill Belichick. This is a game or a situation when Matt Ryan got sat down. I guarantee you Bill Belichick went, okay, cool. Another rookie quarterback I get to deal with. And I do think that ends up being one of the bigger issues here. I don't know how Indianapolis scores enough points to cover, so I will actually take New England minus 5.5. I will stay under the 39.5. I say 14 is the cap for the Colts, and that won't get either the spread or the over done in my mind. So give me the Patriots to cover the 5.5 and under 39.5. Coach, what are your thoughts? Colts at Patriots.
I can't disagree with anything either of you all said, except my first impression of this game was, 5.5 was too much. I do like 3. I do like New England to win. And I mean, I don't want to take any more words out of Raider Jim's mouth, but that organization is in flux right now. And this is probably Frank Reich's walking year. And yeah, they are probably going to be trading for another veteran quarterback next season. So, but however, I do like New England at 3. So Indy to cover that 5.5.
There we are. All
And
right.
Indianapolis went the corporate COVID route. They told Matt Ryan he could work from home.
A remote
So
quarterback.
he's going to be putting in the hours on Madden, everyone. Hop online and face Matt Ryan to help him
They just want him to zoom in.
You know?
Where
a
can I
lot of
apply?
Sorry.
I
Yeah.
said, where can I apply for that job?
Yeah. Well, and I'm over here, everyone talks about Matt Rule over here. He's getting paid what? $40 million over the next 4 years to sit at home and be fired? I mean, it's like
he's getting
Ed
ready.
Orgeron. When
He's
Ed
getting ready
Orgeron
to
was
coach.
yeah.
Yeah.
When Ed Orgeron was told they had that thing, he goes, "Yeah, they told me I'm fired, but they're gonna pay me, $25 million to leave." And he goes, "Which door and when do you want me out of here?" I mean, at that point, sure, there's a lot less money you could pay me to leave. Trust me. So yeah, it's not the end of the world for Matt Ryan or Matt Rule, but it is a little unfortunate. I don't think we'll see Matt Ryan heading forward unless something crazy happens in the future. Moving on to an NFC North matchup. You got the Green Bay Packers heading to Detroit. No, it's not Thanksgiving, but we got the Packers at Detroit. Packers are minus 195, Detroit plus 160 on the money line side of things. The spread sits Green Bay 3.5-point favorites. The over under 49.5. Raider Jim, get us started.
Wow. Another game where, a couple of years ago, we'd all be excited or somewhat excited. But Detroit, they've won one game. Wow. I wish the Raiders could play them. But I guess not. It's not to be. It's not in the stars.
Careful.
But Green Bay's not having that great of a season. We all know that. Mr. Rogers is not having fun in the neighborhood. But still, I think on this one, they come out, they win at 3.5. They've got the tools to beat Detroit. They will beat Detroit. Detroit is just Detroit. And they're not going to have any better luck this time around than they normally would with Green Bay. So take Green Bay minus 3.5. But I don't know about over 49.5 because Green Bay is not an offensive machine anymore. So I would think, if anything, you might want to buy half a point and go under 50 on this one, but it's not going to be a big shootout.
Yeah, I agree on that side of things. Coach, what are your thoughts? Green Bay heading to Detroit.
I have such a disgust for Aaron Rodgers right now, and I'm just going to put it out there. Go Lions. Do it for the Ford family. Get it done. That's it. No numbers.
Ford tough.
Yeah, Bill Ford tough. We're going to start biting knees again. Let's go.
Yes. For me, Detroit was, I'm looking at their schedule right now. Obviously, lost to the Eagles and then they beat Washington and haven't won.
You just wanted to get that in. All you want to do is talk to Eagles.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Forget about I looked at this. I looked at that. I looked at Eagles this week. I looked at Eagles this week. Go Detroit.
I wasn't able to talk about the Eagles a few weeks ago on their bye week, and they're playing here in about 25 minutes, so I got to get them in wherever I can. Still, probably I'd take the over on 2.5. Eagles mentioned by the end of the show, just a heads up. But on the Lions side of things, just looking at the points being scored, week 1, 35, week 2, 36, week 3, 24, week 4, 45, now week 5, 0. Week 7, now they were on a bye week 6, but week 7, they put up 6. Last week, they got things a little righted a bit. They put up 27 points. But that was a game that, against the Dolphins that they looked to be in control of and then just kind of did what they do. You could say everything you want about, Dan Campbell. I like the guy. I think he has the right, that fiery personality. But it's not really translating onto the field. And then they kind of threw in the towel, getting rid of Hawkinson, Jared Goff. That
might be the strength.
Yeah, you're right.
They got rid of their weak link on offense. And they're going to just go gangbusters.
That may be it. But we'll see how this one goes. I don't think if the Lions are going to somewhat right the ship, I don't think it's against Green Bay. Even with Green Bay's troubles, this is another game that Aaron Rodgers is probably, I mean, if he does care, he's pretty pissed off right now. Well, this is kind of like that person that you see and you're like, oh, I've lost, 3 races in a row. Okay, here comes little Jimmy over here. I know I can beat this guy. I'll deal with next week. I think the Packers get the job done. I do think they cover the 3.5. Over under 49. I just don't know if Detroit scores enough. And the question of, does Aaron Rodgers care? That's a big question when you're talking about over unders. I will take the under 49.5. Should be an interesting one up in Detroit. But final game we will be talking about this week, we got the Minnesota Vikings minus 170 at the soon to be sold Washington Commanders. Commanders are plus 145, Minnesota minus 170 on the money line side of things. Minnesota 3.5 point favorites in this one. NFC East, I believe it's the only NFC East game going on this weekend. So I will start this one off. Minnesota has impressed me, and that's saying a lot. I've always said Minnesota is the coin flip team. One week they're going to come out, play really well. The next week they're going to come out and play terrible. And you're going to do that for 16, 17, 18 weeks. That's not the case this year. They've been coming up, aces, except for that one game when they lost to the Eagles. There's one more call out. But anyways, their only loss was to them. And other than that, I think they played very well. Kirk Cousins has the weapons around him. Add in TJ Hawkinson. I really do like Minnesota here. I think the spread's a little too low. We're not talking about a true home field advantage here. Maybe a dome team going outside, but that's it. They're probably going to be 50-50 in the stands. In Washington, obviously, I kind of alluded to it earlier. The news came out that Dan Snyder has hired Bank of America to get the wheels rolling on the selling of the team. I don't think that's going to, be too big of a factor, because that's kind of been the cloud that's been around this team for the last 5 years. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I think Minnesota keeps the train rolling. They cover the 3.5. I do think we stay under 43.5, mainly because of the offensive side of things for Washington. I don't know how they do their part to get us over that number. So give me Minnesota minus 3.5, under 43.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Minnesota at Washington.
Yeah, in Indianapolis, Colts look like the family of the year when you look at the Commanders front office. Mm-hmm. They've got so many issues. Definitely translates. Their offense is 28th in yards per play, 28th in third down conversions. They've got a few victories and can't take that away from them. However, they're playing the Vikings, who are playing very, very good championship caliber football right now. They got Zadarius Smith, who is going to make somebody look really, really bad, like he's been doing every game this season. It's like he finds somebody to pick on, and then he just picks on them the entire game. It's going to happen again. Minnesota wins this one, minus 3.5, no problem. I'm with you. I see 28-14, which puts us at 42, which keeps us under 43.5.
There we are. Coach, what are your thoughts? Washington hosting the Vikings.
Go Aztecs. Go Vikings. I think we all know why the Padres lost, because those fans that sang "We Are the Commanders" came out with a goose song for us and just cursed the rest of our playoff.
Yeah, there were a lot of songs that were really bad in that, by the way. But
horrible. Just like their front office, as Raider Jim alluded to. We can ignore the discontent or the dysfunctionality of a Dan Snyder and how long it's reflected on the field, regardless of the stars that they've had. Or I think Riverboat Run's a great football coach, just dealt, a wrong deck with Dan Snyder. So go Aztecs, go Kevin O'Connell, go Vikings. And 3.5 shocking.
You get down.
Little
keep it
cameo
down.
appearance there.
Yeah,
from
Raider
Cameo
Jim.
appearance.
Raider
Raider
Jim's
Jim.
best bud right there.
There he is. All right. I thought he was talking to me. Keep it down. Yeah, I was like, whoa, I went up to you last week. I could say what I want.
Some news from Washington as well. I don't think he'll be playing this week or, maybe in the next few weeks, but Chase Young has begun or has at least been cleared to get back onto the football field. And that guy right there has put the, fear of God in me as an Eagle fan. He's a great player. He was great at Ohio State. I think he's going to be great at this level. Hopefully he can stay healthy going forward. So that's at least one positive for Washington, but I don't think it will matter this week at all. But that is all we got for you today. Let's head to our final thoughts. We'll start with you, Coach Lupian. Final thoughts for week 9.
Week 9, wow, it's just flown by. It's unfortunate that I won't be able to watch our Monday night game. There's better plans in mind, I believe. Isn't that right, gents? So I look forward to that. And I'll just say go Aztecs.
Yeah, I believe it's
Or
Cal State
O'Connell.
Fullerton.
Oh, I was going to say go Aztecs for O'Connell, but also,
Oh,
leading up to Monday. So, yeah, it is Cal State Fullerton, and I look forward to week 9, and I look forward to Monday Night Football, even though I won't be able to watch it. And we're going to go 3-1 against Bird mascots this year, Raider Jim.
yes, 3-1 before you end up going 3-2 by the end of the year.
No, it'll be 4-1.
Oh, sorry, that just snuck out. I don't know where that came
It'll
from.
be 4-1. We're playing
Okay.
for a pick.
We're
playing for
see.
a pick.
Be the battle of the draft picks right there. But
That's what it will be.
Raider Jim, what are your final thoughts for NFL Weekly's Week 9's program?
Well, as you gentlemen know, I was on a small trip back east a couple of weeks back. I was in our nation's capital where I had never been. Did a lot of studying.
Did
Really,
a lot of stirring the pot. Hey, did a lot of stirring the pot. I'm responsible for the Snyder fiasco, and I got him out. I thought you got him out, right? That's all you uncovered it all.
I paid close attention to how things work in the Senate and the House and all those places. And so because we're just a couple minutes away from kickoff, I am going to exercise my right to filibuster. I'm going to talk for about 90 minutes.
90 minutes show. Nice.
But the thing is I got the button right here that could end all this. I can pull the plug on all this on your filibuster and everything, but I love that. I love that filibuster drop.
No, I have no further thoughts except that, boy, it's got to get better than getting shut out.
Yeah. So it's all uphill from here, Raider.
That's it.
Kick that field goal, first one that goes through. It'll feel good. You'll remember what it's like to see your team score some points.
There
I have
you go.
two things I want to touch on. First, it's been, pretty much coming up on 5 years. I've been working with these two gentlemen. Maybe not the first year we weren't working together. We were working kind of independently with 1090 and then, some other people. But over the last 3 years, it's been us three doing this NFL stuff. And I just tell you, Thursday nights or Wednesday nights, whenever we record, it's no matter what else is going on in life, it's a lot of fun to sit down for 90 minutes, 60 minutes to 90 minutes and just kind of BS with some of my best friends. And I'm really looking forward to Monday when the podcast goes, together. I think it'll probably be one of the first times all three of us have been together at the same time for little Lupian's birthday. So can't wait to enjoy some San Diego State basketball with two of my best friends out there. So really excited for that. And the other thing I will say, I talked about it about a month ago. We're 4 or 5 days away from Election Day. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to go vote or do this or do that or what to vote for. To be honest, I really don't care. The only thing that I really do care about is if you do vote, please be educated. I brought props with me. It's this book that's sent to pretty much, I assume, everybody. But it just shows you both sides of things. Because if you're basing your votes on what you see on TV or what's mailed to you, you're doing a lot of people a disservice. There are a lot of people in this world who have and would die for the right to vote. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you got to go vote or you got to know every single issue, but just know whatever you're voting on, just educate yourself on it on both sides, please. And I think that's the end of it, because I've always said, the weak link in democracy is an uneducated voter. So just make sure you
Absolutely.
educate yourself on whatever you are voting on, and be safe. Doesn't go your way, get over it and get back to work. Nothing really too big changes. So with that, thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It's time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Go Birds.
Peace out.